Hey guys, so there has been a massive increase in utilization of what are called peptide hormones. So lots of people are turning to peptide hormones to help with one major thing, and that is fat loss. These medications are not new. They've been around for quite a while, but historically have been used to help with things like diabetes. And research found that when people were taking these for diabetes, one of the major things that they found was weight loss, and that obviously was very appealing to many people. However, just like with any other medication or any other drug, whenever we have a positive effect, there's always going to be a side effect. Most people that are using these weight loss drugs like Semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, and some of the newer ones like Tirzepatide are looking for one major thing, and that is fat loss. Now, in order to achieve that, from a big picture standpoint, we have to consume less calories than we expend. We have what's called a caloric deficit. And so these peptide hormones help to facilitate that by a few different ways. One major thing that they do is they help to slow the gastric emptying. So they slow how long it takes for your stomach to actually empty itself, which gives you a feeling of being full longer, which leads to people intaking less food overall. The other thing it does is it works to suppress your appetite. And by getting less hungry, we're going to likely ingest less food, and therefore we're going to expend more calories than we're taking in. The biggest thing we want to also address is now that these drugs have been used for some time, we're getting a lot of feedback from patients as to the side effects of these medications. And some of these, although they may be small as far as percentage, it's definitely something that's worth considering. When you are intaking less food and you have such a massive drop in caloric intake, one thing that can happen is we're not taking in enough food to sustain our lean body mass. We're also not taking in enough food potentially to sustain bone density mass. And so what's happening is we're starting to see very, very young people who are losing a lot of weight, but it's not just fat. We're starting to see young people, 30s and 40s, that are getting osteoporosis, osteopenia. We're also starting to see weight loss can also come from muscle mass. So when we're considering taking these medications, we have to consider that when we lose weight, we're likely going to be losing bone density and muscle mass, which overall are not beneficial for overall health. So the weight coming down, definitely great, but losing bone and muscle, not great. So it's really important that if you are considering these medications to have these things in mind. Ways that you can minimize this effect is, even though, yes, you are eating lower calories, you still have to prioritize things like protein and mineral-dense foods. We have to make sure that we're getting enough nutrients so that we're not just burning fat, but we are sustaining the muscle and bone mass that we have. Additionally, you have to stay active. This is not a magic drug. This is not something that you can just take and then magically you lose a bunch of weight and you're healthier and everything's great. Maintaining or beginning some sort of strength training regimen is of the utmost importance. The number one way that we can maintain bone density is to put stress on the skeleton through exercise. It doesn't have to be, a massive overhaul to where you're doing powerlifting program or a CrossFit program 7 days a week, and it doesn't have to be that rigorous, but there needs to be some sort of external load, some sort of weight that you are working against in a consistent enough manner to force the bones to have to stay reinforced to maintain that bone density. Without that, you run the risk of bone softening disorders and losing muscle mass, which loss of muscle mass has been shown recently in research to be one of the biggest contributors to longevity. We've looked at strength of the legs, muscle density of the thighs, and grip strength are three major indicators of longevity. So if you are considering getting onto these medications, you got to do it the right way. You must work with a doctor, make sure you're getting blood work and that you're staying on top of your overall health markers for total muscle mass and bone density. Even though you're going to be feeling less hungry, which is the goal, we have to make sure that we're consuming enough food to maintain our bone density and muscle mass so that we don't end up like one of these cases where you're a young person that ends up with a condition that is typically tied to elderly or geriatric patients.